recording on March 5th? 5th. Episode 367 of the 359 podcast. I'm BVG, and your hosts today are Ben Fox Rubin and Roger Chang, all the way back from Barcelona.
Hello.
Hey, welcome back.
Glad to be back.
Are we already on 367?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, you're the keeper of numbers, so you would know.
A week and a half ago was the 359th.
Wait, that was a week and a half ago? Wow.
Oh my God.
Seemed like forever ago.
As time flies. Either way, we also have an extended edition podcast from the weekend that Brian put together about our conversation with Mark Lesser.
Yep.
Mark Lesser.
Yep.
Mark Lesser from mouse.org, so check
Director.
that out. And we've also got Roger back here today to talk about all things Mobile World Congress. We're going to try to run through a bunch of stuff with
Hamon.
him.
Let's talk about Hamon.
We'll talk about Hamon, of course, which isn't kosher, but...
No, it's not. But
fine.
It's delicious.
And we'll talk about 5G, the S9, a car that's operated by a phone from Huawei, the Vivo selfie camera, iPhone clones with the notch.
Well, we'll try to get through all of them.
As many as we
We're
can.
not sure if we'll get to them in the podcast, but we'll definitely talk about them after the podcast recording. So.
And Roger is also our resident expert when it comes to 5G, so please pepper him with as many questions as you can.
I love to take questions on 5G.
Specifically on that one, but also
I got
any
one.
Mobile World
What's
Congress questions.
5G?
Okay.
It's one more G than 4G.
Got it. Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay, so send in your questions and comments. BVG will get to as many as he can at the end of the show. Let's get to the podcast.
Hang on, folks. We'll be back in 3 minutes and 59 seconds to see in the chat from 3, 2.
Welcome to the 359. I'm Ben Fox Rubin.
I'm Roger Chang.
So, Roger, you are back from Mobile World Congress, the world's biggest mobile show. What did you see there? What was the most exciting thing for you?
Well, look, the headliner of the show was undoubtedly the Galaxy S9.
Mm-hmm.
It's the biggest phone, dominated pretty much all the headlines. It's the next big flagship phone. It's not hugely different from the GS8,
No,
but
it's pretty incremental.
I will say that the camera is amazing. They focused a lot on redefining the camera, and if you just take out all the hype, it's actually a really solid camera that does decently well in low light settings, which is impressive to me.
Look, the Galaxy S8 is a good phone. So I have that phone. So in many regards, why would you want to revolutionize that phone within a year? I don't really think so. So don't throw out the design completely. It makes sense to do some refinements with the S9. You had some opportunities to actually have some hands-on time with the S9, right?
Yeah. So I got to test it in low light settings, various dark pars in Barcelona, and I compared them with my iPhone 10, and the pictures were a lot better. I have to give it to Samsung. They have this thing called a dual aperture setting, so it has a specific aperture for nighttime setting versus daytime setting, and it works wonders. I have to say that the photo quality is pretty strong. Detail wise, it may not have been as good as the iPhone 10, but in terms of brightness, it beat the iPhone 10 by a wide margin.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see how much the camera technology has been going in leaps and bounds, and there's also been a pretty strong fist fight going on between the Pixel, the iPhone, and Samsung. So expect to see a lot more of that through this year. I also wanted to ask you, of course, about 5G. I feel like you were writing about 5G every day or every hour at the show. Is it mostly hype at this point? When should we expect to see 5G stuff? Tell us a little bit more about what you saw.
So 5G is definitely quick. It's going from hype to reality. And I think this year you will start to see sort of the early makings of 5G as something that you'll actually be able to use in very, very limited areas and limited towns with limited devices. Remember, the first phones don't come out until next year. So the wider launch of the service won't be until 2019. That said, those early days of 5G are not going to be what I think everyone's kind of hyped or promised. It's not going to be as fast, or the coverage won't be as comprehensive. There are going to be a lot of dead spots. The devices may not be they may not last long. Battery life is going to be a real issue. If you'll remember from 4G, those early days with 4G LTE phones, they were tough. Those phones did not last long. They got kicked off of the 4G network really fast. I expect, at least in the early days, there's going to be a lot of headaches, a lot of difficulties with that transition. So I think the promise of 5G as this super fast, super comprehensive network is still there, but it's still a few years away.
Yeah,
we will
be patient.
Exactly. Yeah. We will get to see a taste of it later this year, early next year, but it's not going to be great.
Okay, so how soon until we got questions about this on the podcast more than once? How soon until a major flagship phone is going to have 5G?
We might see it next year. I got some very conflicting answers. I talked to the various U.S. carriers. I think T-Mobile has said that they kind of expect it to be a premium phone, but I don't know if he meant premium
Or
as
a
in a
flagship,
flagship
yeah.
phone. AT&T said that it might be that you'll see more 5G specific phones like we did with 4G, like a Samsung Galaxy 5G, as opposed to like the flagship S phone.
All right, we've got a little bit of time left, so I wanted to get to one more thing. iPhone clones. We're
Yes.
all over the show. We were making fun of the notch, and now the notch is everywhere.
I know. So we saw it with the Asus phone last week. On Friday, there were leaks from Evan Blass, EV Leaks, basically pointed out that the LG G7 or whatever they're going to call it, as well as the next OnePlus phone, will have their own notches. So rumored to have notches. So you're starting to see this trend that iPhone's kicked off, and it may not be. I mean, it's not a trend that I don't know everyone really wants to see happen, but here it goes.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, if you want to read more about these stories, check us out on CNET. I'm Ben Fox Rubin.
I'm Roger Chang.
Thanks for listening.
All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us. That was the conclusion of the recording of the audio podcast. We can go ahead and start digging through your always brilliant questions and comments in the chat. But
They are brilliant.
already on the platform for 5G, Roger.
Do you need me to define what 5G is?
No, not really, because it seems like the audience is far more educated than I am, and they know plenty about what 5G really is.
Faster mobile.
Right.
That's
so
it.
here's the thing that keeps kind of popping up. Why is it relevant to the regular consumer? Most people are actually fairly satisfied with 4G on their personal mobile devices.
What?
Where does 5G come into play? When does it actually become a powerful, relevant force?
So this isn't going to happen for another few years as 5G matures, but it's not. 5G isn't really just about speed. It's also about responsiveness, something called latency. And 5G has low latency. So with 4G, when you click on a link on your phone, there's still a bit of a delay for when your phone talks to the tower, gets all the information, it comes back. And so there's a bit of delay. You'll see that a lot if you're doing mobile gaming, right? Especially if you're like playing one of those real-time shooters. There's a bit of that lag when you fire a gun when someone else actually sees you get hit or sees the attack. With 5G, the low latency means that basically you have almost real-time communication. It's basically a millisecond, less than a millisecond of delay. And that enables things like self-driving cars, because self-driving cars need to talk to each other, and current networks are not fast enough to handle that communication. Talking about telemedicine, the idea that a doctor can control a robot, that robotic arms like a doctor in Switzerland can control robotic arms in New York and basically perform surgery with those arms. Couldn't do that with LTE because of the lag time, but with 5G, at least theoretically, the delay is so minimal that he could actually perform that surgery with those robotic arms, and it would be precise.
Right. The other thing that we bring up a lot on the podcast is the potential of 5G being available as your broadband replacement in home.
Yep. In fact, I think that's what we're going to see first. Verizon has really talked a lot about using 5G as that broadband replacement service, something called fixed mobile broadband.
Oh, that's such a lovely name.
I know. It's so sexy. But the idea that they no longer have to like rip up the streets to put in internet lines or fiber cables. Instead, they're just using a wireless connection shot right into your house, basically powering all the broadband in your home. And Verizon, I believe, at least they said publicly, Sacramento is the first town to get it this year. There's going to be more. But again, this goes back to my original point with 5G is we're not going to see a lot of it even going into like early 2019 because I think the deployments are pretty minimal. T-Mobile's talked about 30 cities, AT&T 12 cities, Sprint 6 cities. Verizon hasn't talked about any cities with mobile broadband yet. So that chances are you probably don't live in some of those towns. Although to T-Mobile's credit, some of the larger cities, T-Mobile and Sprint, some of the larger cities like LA, Chicago, New York will get some form of 5G next year.
And we also have a pretty international audience here on the podcast.
Yep.
Can you share a little bit maybe that you heard about in Europe when you were in Barcelona or maybe some other parts of the world that will also see some 5G networks?
No, that's a great question.
India.
Well, India is not going to get 5G for a while. I'm sorry. Korea, Japan, and China look to be the other big leaders here. We saw in Korea, in Pyongyang, the Olympic Village actually had 5G. up and running, a kind of early version of it.
Wait. I think you mean Pyeongchang.
Pyeongchang. Did I say Pyongyang?
Pyongyang is in North Korea.
Sorry, I meant Pyeongchang.
It's fine. I play a lot of trivia mobile games.
Thanks for that correction.
It's okay.
That's a pretty critical distinction there.
It is.
In the Olympic Village, they did have a small 5G network running as kind of a test run. But yeah, you'll see Korea, you'll see Japan have it. Europe's a little bit behind. I think they're all kind of still dealing with the money that they put into the 4G networks, and they're a little bit more reluctant to get going on 5G because it is expensive. It is basically you're running through a whole new big capital investment plan to redo your network so they're better and faster and stronger, but that takes a lot of money.
So the customers that are best positioned to see 5G sooner rather than later, it sounds like, are the folks in the U.S.
Yeah, I think in the U.S. and I think parts of Asia will be pretty well suited to get 5G, some taste of 5G earlier rather than later.
Good.
Coming from the chat, Mike Shaw, the burning question: what phones currently support 5G? Will we all have time to upgrade in a year or two?
That's a really easy question to answer. No phones support 5G. Not at all. None. In fact, the first phones won't show up until next year. The chipsets that actually enable a 5G connection aren't even available yet. I think they'll be available probably end of this year, going into phones that come out next year. And I think they'll be fairly limited. And I want to warn again, those early phones they're going to be battery hogs. There may be inconsistencies in terms of like connection and coverage. And even in towns where they say they have 5G, they're going to be like kind of pockets of 5G. Like
this is really helpful to get the to understand a little bit more around the hype, because I feel like 5G has been hyped for years in the tech world, and people might be really let down by those early days of 5G. And those early days could last 6 months.
Sounds kind of like 4K.
2 year. Yeah. 4K?
Yeah.
I mean,
or 4G. I mean, even
4K eventually became ubiquitous, though. So that's
eventually is the key word.
Yeah,
I've got a 4K TV. How many people are producing 4K content?
Exactly.
A handful.
Right.
Yeah. And you bring up a good point with 5G. How much stuff on your phone is really gonna use that? Because you made you referenced a bunch of different uses, but as far as like
phone,
surgery.
Right?
Yeah, but like it's self-driving cars and surgery isn't really something that are quite there yet, or something that people are going to use in their daily lives all the time.
Right. I mean, I think early on it'll be about speed, right? Like you'll be able to download and stream things super fast. But I mean, for a lot of folks, the LTE network is good enough, and I think one of the other conversations I had, or a lot of conversations I had at the show, was about making LTE better. They're not. Just because we're going to 5G doesn't mean they're stopping with the investment in 4G. And the idea is get 4G good enough so if you're on 5G and you somehow drop down to 4G, it's not such a bad fallback. Because if you remember with LTE, when you fell off LTE and got back to 3G, that was like
horrible.
It was a terrible,
it still
terrible
happens
experience.
to me.
Oh yeah, but before it was happening all the time, everywhere. Even if you theoretically were in a 4G area, you would drop down to 3G, and the experience, the transition was not good.
Yeah.
Back into the chat from Navench. Is Galaxy S9 compatible with 5G?
No.
Same question.
Nope. Sorry. No phones coming out this year will have 5G, and I would probably bet that a handful of phones coming out next year have 5G, and I'm almost certain the iPhone will not be one of them.
Correct. All right. From Imagine Sagi, what devices utilized 5G at the Olympic Village that you saw?
Well, I didn't see it personally. From what I understand, I think there might have been like 5G tablets, and I believe a 5G call was made, but I don't think it was like
it's like
it wasn't from
limited.
a phone.
Yeah.
It was super limited. It was just sort of like they wanted to kind of test out some of the connections and how it would work in a real world situation. But I don't think there were any like commercial devices. It wouldn't be a device that you'd be able to buy.
One of the first things that people will be able to buy, correct me if I'm wrong here, is that puck from AT&T.
Yeah. And Verizon has basically confirmed that they will have some form of mobile broadband 5G this year, just like AT&T, and so presumably they'll also have pucks. These are wireless hotspots, and they're basically they do that because it's easier to get that product through testing. It just there's no complicated display. There's just sort of like it's a box that taps into the 5G network and then broadcasts a Wi-Fi network for you.
From Srinjoy, will 5G get a similar reality check like our poor buddy 4G once the deployments begin on a wide scale?
And I think so. I think you're. That's what I tried to do with that story I wrote on Friday. Was basically, kind of dispel some of the myths, some of the hype. You know, it's. I think the long run promise of 5G is still fantastic and potentially world changing, but it's going to take several years. And if you look at LTE now, right, we're about 8 years into, about 7.5 years into the 4G LTE deployment. It's not perfect now. It's much better than it was, but it's taken years for it to get better. So I wouldn't expect 5G to just come on and change everyone's lives right away.
So when do we celebrate if they come out with 359G?
359G?
I mean, that'll come in like
Ooh.
what? A couple hundred years?
Yeah, probably. If you're looking at like 10 years per G, that's a lot of years, man.
It's a lot of years. I hope
That's a lot of
we
centuries.
live long enough to see it
All
because
right, guys, eat your Wheaties.
yeah, we'll be like the heads of that parade.
359G. Oh my gosh.
That was a full come around on Olympic jokes, by the way, that you completely missed.
Oh, I did.
I say eat your Wheaties.
Oh, sorry.
Ooh.
Yeah, you're right. I was too busy talking.
All right, let's take a sidebar real quick. Anthony Nunez is in a crisis, and it's not quite related, but it's not related either. You guys have gotten this question tons of times, but I'm in the middle of purchasing a phone and need help between the last three I've narrowed it down to.
Okay.
And from the three he's looking at, apparently price is not a concern.
Ooh,
Okay.
Samsung
Lucky
Galaxy
you.
S9, iPhone 10, Pixel 2 XL. The three big boys right now. Who's really going to lead in the charge? I wish we had some more information from you, Anthony, about your
Yeah.
stipulations, whether it's about money, whether it's about
Well, he said
camera.
he said money is no object, right?
I'm guessing because he picked those three.
Because
Right.
he picked the 10.
I
yeah.
would say, okay, are you an Android user? Are you an iOS user already? How many photos do you take? Is the camera an important factor
Do
for
you have any previous loyalties?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Do you care about the headphone jack? Because the S9 is the only one with the headphone jack. The other one is that it's very important to note that if you're going to shell out $1,000 on an iPhone 10, you might as well shell out an extra $200 or so to get the additional storage. So it's going to last a little longer.
Yeah. And also the S9, do you want just the S9 or the S9 Plus?
You just said 9.
Just 9. All right. Well, I mean, if money's no object.
I don't know.
I
You
don't
have
know.
you have the 10. I have the 8. I
Right.
like the S8, and I would probably say that you'd be happy with the S9. I like that it still has the headphone jack. I like the design of those phones.
Right. I'm a little hesitant to make a call. I think if you are it depends a lot on what you are now. Are you an iOS user or an Android user? I think that will depend a lot more on. But for me, at least, it's a toss up between the iPhone 10 and the S9. I think the Pixel 2 XL had some issues originally. I mean, I know the camera is pretty strong on it, but I think it's really between Samsung and Apple.
As it usually is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on to the more about the S9. Srinjoy. Roger, is the S9's superior brightness and vibrancy majorly influenced by its great screen?
Well, yeah. I mean, look, it uses an OLED display. Not a lot of focus on the display this year in terms of like improvement. I mean, last year's phone was a fantastic phone. The display was fantastic.
And they really played up the display on last year's phone.
Yes,
Where they were like breaking out of the box.
This
and
is
all
less.
That other
This
stuff.
is less about. I mean, the display is good. It was already a great display. So it's just not a huge step up from the GS8.
Go figure. From Josh Boyda, when will the Nokia smartphones arrive in the U.S.?
Haha. Well,
Nokia.
actually, Katie had a story in that I believe only the Nokia, the new Nokia 6 is coming to the U.S. and with no carrier partners though. I think they haven't yet signed up. I don't think they will be signing up any U.S. carrier partners. There was a big question about that last year when they relaunched. This is the startup HMD Global, which is making these Nokia phones. There was a lot of question about whether or not they would partner with a U.S. carrier. That hadn't happened. I don't think it's going to happen with this one. You might get it like at a Best Buy or an Amazon or one of those other random retailers, but it's gonna be a little bit harder to find than your standard phone.
Which will limit the sales.
Absolutely.
That usually tends to be the case.
And it's a solid phone. I think it's an okay budget phone. I was pretty excited with their flagship phone. It's like the Nokia 8. I'm gonna butcher it. Sirocco. I keep.
Is that part of the name?
I keep wanting to say Sriracha, but it's not Sriracha.
That would be a great name for a phone.
It was. I saw it. That was a really nice looking phone. stock Android pretty much, but that unfortunately is not coming to the US.
Since we are talking about the not the top tier phones anymore, did you have a chance to check out the Vivo concept phone?
Yeah, that was probably one of the crazier phones I saw at the show. Now, this is the one where it's basically they removed everything around, removed the bezel almost entirely, even to the point where there's no notch or anything for the front-facing camera.
It looks really futury because of that.
It is a concept phone. It's a little bit, if you notice, it's a little bit on the thicker side, but on the top there is a pop-up selfie cam, and they say it comes out in less than a second, but I'm not really sure.
That's not fast enough.
It's not really fast enough. I mean, for a selfie, unfortunately, there is still the rear camera for you if you need to take spontaneous photos. And then there is the fingerprint sensor, 2 fingerprint sensors in the glass. So all kinds of crazy, cool design concepts.
If I remember correctly, this one also doesn't have speakers. It thing vibrates.
Yeah, it's like almost like a bone conduction type.
Yeah.
Yeah. So look, this is a concept phone. For one thing, Vivo doesn't sell phones in the US, or if they do, no one actually buys them. And this phone in particular is just a concept device. But it was definitely one of the more interesting ones in the show and kind of points to what we might see down the line.
Yeah, and it's nice to see that they didn't bother with a notch this time, because everybody else is like, well, Apple did it, so we're going to do it too.
Now we can do notches. Notches are cool. Apple made notches cool.
Apple,
no, they didn't.
No, they didn't. They just They just made.
They made them acceptable, I guess.
I think the thing with the notches is that there's a specific reason to have the notch because of Face ID.
Yeah.
In the iPhone 10, what's coming up afterwards, those other phones need to justify their notch for.
I mean,
for
you'll
one
see
reason
things.
or
I
another.
imagine you'll see things like with LG, like they already have a dual cam on the front, so a notch that kind of notch would make sense, right?
Yeah.
All right, I have an idea about a mod for this Vivo phone already.
Ooh.
So if somebody makes a case that turns a hand crank like on a Jack-in-the-Box, and then when the camera, like you reach the end of the pop goes the weasel and the camera snaps up, and that's your selfie. You don't have a choice. You don't actually hit the flash. It's just whenever it surprises you, and that's your takeaway selfie.
That would be a great
that
idea.
would be cool.
Yeah, that would definitely make it look a lot less
I would
future.
pay extra for that.
I couldn't fit it in my pocket, but yeah, I'd have to carry around a tote bag just for my phone.
the hand crank plugs in later. It's not.
Okay,
I don't think it's
sure.
not permanently on there, right? You could just
Roger, I have to go home. I left the hand crank for my phone at home.
For your front-facing cam, you still have the back one. It's cool. It's all good.
Oh, that's how you charge the phone too.
Yeah.
Hey, we only got a few minutes left, and you were talking about the Notchgate. Are we calling it Notchgate?
No. It's not a gate yet.
It's not a controversy. It's a trend now. It's become.
Isn't it funny how it goes from one to the other so quickly?
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
This is the way of the world these days.
Anyways, Sir Michael Brown is a longtime reporter at CNET. What do you think about the Apple effect and how something that you don't think should catch on from Apple actually does?
Good question.
I mean, we've talked about this with notches. We've talked about this with the removal of the headphone jack. Apple definitely has, they've shown a willingness to kind of stand out for something, to take a controversial stand, whether it's removing the headphone jack or adding a notch.
And they're known as a major design house, and so their design decisions, whether good or bad, in our immediate sense, end up having significant influence. We spent a lot of time initially making fun of the look of AirPods, and now they look very typical, and I wouldn't be surprised. I haven't been on the market for Bluetooth headphones, but I wouldn't be surprised if some knockoffs already exist that look very similar to that.
Yeah.
We got a follow-up from Anthony Nunez. I'm scared of getting married to this entire Apple or Android ecosystem. I get one for work, and it's time for me to get a new one for myself. I've got the iPhone 6S. I want to know which I'm going to upgrade to. So when it came down to the S9 or the iPhone 10, you've already got experience with the Apple.
Oh, I see.
I would, in that case, I would go with Android. That way you kind of have your foot in both worlds. I do that. I have an iPhone 8. That's my work phone. Yeah. And there is a little bit of lag time trying to work the iPhone after spending a lot of time with Android.
My only issue with that is because I deal with the same thing. Your brain gets trained to use a phone in a certain way.
Yeah, you have a muscle memory.
And then exactly. And then having to reprogram it to handle two different phones. Sometimes it's a little bit annoying, but it's good to have, a foot in each different OS so you're not beholden to the other. So yeah, I would say if you've already got an iPhone and you're looking to diversify, a GS9 is a is not a bad way to get into the Android ecosystem.
Okay, at the last couple of minutes we have in the show, a couple of takeaway quick impressions or predictions. First, from Lucky Never, he wants to know about that foldable Samsung smartphone.
Oh, great question.
Yeah, great question. Actually, I had a chance to talk with the Samsung, the CEO of the Samsung's mobile business, and he did confirm that they are still doing work on it. He wouldn't quite 100% commit to the phone coming out this year, but it seemed like they were doing a lot of work. There was a lot of progress being made on that phone. So we might see it this year, probably in the fall, maybe, if it comes out this year. But he did stress that they were still working out like whether or not the experience of it is actually taking advantage of the foldable phone and they're just not building a foldable phone for the sake of doing it. So at least they've got the right approach and attitude about it, because it can't be a gimmick for this to work. It actually, the foldable phone, there needs to be applications that take advantage of that new design. So.
I don't think that would come out immediately out of the gate,
No, but I mean, you can imagine. Well, Samsung definitely has a mixed history with software, but you can see them building their own programs or apps that take advantage of the foldable phone in ways that hopefully inspire other developers to create.
And that could have a huge influence. We were talking about, from Michael's question earlier, Apple's influence.
Yep.
If Samsung creates a foldable phone that actually does take off and do well, expect to see a lot more of those types of things.
Yeah.
And last but not least, coming in from Mr. Tech, a BlackBerry Key 1.
Oh, after Roger's own heart asking a BlackBerry question.
You're so kind. Yes, the BlackBerry Key 1. I'm sure you saw Evan had some leaks on the BlackBerry Key 2. That's a sequel phone. We're expecting it later this year. They had already talked about teasing a follow-up to the Key 1. There was some talk about the Key 1 early in the show. I believe the head of the BlackBerry business under TCL had sort of told me that he's hoping to get like 3 to 5% of the premium market share. That for him would be success. I think that would equate to, I was doing the math based off of estimates for how well the phone has done so far, and that's like, it's more than like a 10x increase in sales for them to hit even 3% of the premium phone market, not the total phone market, just phones that are $400 or more. And that's a pretty tall order.
It usually is for BlackBerry to come back.
Yeah. I mean, look, I wouldn't say it's coming back. I would say it's alive, like faint pulse. But I mean, they are selling phones, and they are, from what I understand, I believe they're making money off of it, and so.
So catch me up. Okay, so first of all, TCL is the new owner of the BlackBerry line of phones.
TCL basically pays BlackBerry Limited, which is still around. BlackBerry makes software now, but they pay for the rights to use the BlackBerry brand in its phones, so to make BlackBerry phones. Yes.
Okay, and the Key 1, which the question was about, does it have a physical keyboard, and does it run on Android?
Well, the Key 1's been out for a few months now, so it's out in the market. It does have a physical keyboard. There was a second phone they created called the BlackBerry Motion, which was all full touch screen. The second one is believed to be a keyboard phone, but we still haven't seen it yet.
Okay.
And that's where we're going to leave it for today. Thanks for joining us, everybody.
Leaving us on a BlackBerry question. Wow.
I mean, it was a good question.
No, totally.
Great questions.
I love answering
Dark
BlackBerry
horse.
questions. It's just, yeah. All right, cool.
So, yeah, we'll be back tomorrow. Who wants to take us out for the day?
Ben?
I'll do it. Okay. The 359 is available on iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, FeedBurner, Google Play Music, the Amazon Echo, and, of course, CNET.com. Roger, thanks very much for coming back. And we'll see you guys again tomorrow.
You're welcome for coming back. Where else would I be?
Okay.
Hiding out in Barcelona somewhere.
See y'all tomorrow.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.